Hello, we're back. I am Stamford Chidge, and this is the Chelsea Football Fancast, and we're now going to talk about the wonderful, great game against Liverpool last Tuesday, and I was very, very privileged even to be there with Dan, wasn't I?
Oh, cracking cup tie.
It was.
Atmosphere was brilliant. It was just proper cup football. Loved it. Loved every minute.
It was great, wasn't it? Because I had an awful lot to do that night. I think I'd been interviewed by the Premier League channel. And I'd been interviewed by Radio 5 with Tim and Rick. God, that must have been a nightmare. I just kind of had a flashback to that. The BBC interviewed me, Tim Rolls and Rick Glanville. Yeah.
Okay.
We like Phil, so he got away alive. But my God, he's a brave man. So I'd been really busy, and I'd been in the pub and had a skinful. And I walked in when, Dan?
7:44 and 58 seconds.
Yep. It was absolutely.
I was going, ref, can you wait for Chidge? And he did.
I just timed it to perfection. And but it was a brilliant night. I mean, you know, what I've got to say about the game generally, I just thought it was a real proper game. I mean, that is the kind of football I love. That proper needle, proper nasty challenges going in, two sides that hate each other, two sets of fans that hate each other. But I think the other thing that really struck out with me, Dan, and I think we talked about this when I was there, it was really, really, really tense.
Yeah.
You know, it was really tense, and I loved that. It was great.
It was one of those games you go into on a knife edge. You know, it's a classic cliche. The first goal in that game was totally going to be crucial. Yeah. Because if they scored, that changes the whole dynamic.
And it was quite end-to-end as well.
Yeah, but Liverpool had Sturridge been playing, I think in the first 10-15 minutes could have been 3 up because they had 3 very good chances.
Yeah, they did.
One's even made a miraculous recovery to tackle Sterling, and Courtois made 2 very good saves. This is another typical Chelsea Mourinho performance, dogged and. It
was dogged actually, and I tell you what really impressed me was the way that they. They battled and really fought in that game, Dan, didn't they? I mean, the work rate they put. I mean, Hazard ran his socks off. I thought it was a fantastic performance by Hazard.
It was a game packed with character,
wasn't it?
We've had this issue occasionally this season where we've looked like a team that's still in transition. Yeah. There's 1 or 2 sort of young characters that need to grow, and I think they all grew that night.
I was going to say, Dan, exactly that. I thought they grew up that night, didn't they?
Yeah,
as a team, I think.
But the other thing I noticed that was just the speed of the thing. A mate of mine who normally sits a little bit back from the pitch was, because it's a cup game, was sat down right at eye level, and he said all he could see was legs
Blur.
going.
I know.
And he said to me afterwards, was it really that fast? You know, and it absolutely was, wasn't it?
Right to the end.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I was sat with Dan, and Dan's at the back of the West Lower. So, I mean, normally I'm right up in the gods in Gate 17, and when you look down on the game, you don't see that speed and movement. But, you know, looking at it like that, you were very aware of how quick it was. It was a no-holds-barred. I mean, it's proper football, Andy, wasn't it?
Pulsating.
You must have loved that.
Oh yeah, it was 90 minutes on your feet, half extra time all on your feet, not told to sit down.
And it meant something.
And it was for a cup final as well, and it was against them.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere, I thought, was that's, you know, it reminded me of European, you know, one of those famous European nights that you have at Stamford Bridge. Sound. But I mean, joking aside, I mean, it was actually. I mean,
it was.
You know, I'm trying to. I think do you think it was better than PSG last year? Because I thought PSG was rocking last year. The Champions League.
I think PSG was probably better. Just
mind you, you think PSG was better?
No,
yeah,
I disagree. I thought
the lateness of the goal and what it meant getting through against a multi-million team. But this was against them.
I think the atmosphere was better, actually, I have to say, Andy. I think it was better last night, because I think it was more consistent.
It was. Like I said, from minute 1 to 120...
We really gave it large.
I mean, a lot of people were saying, there's no way this can go on this fast. It can't carry on like this to the player. But it did, and it just carried on and carried on.
And proper time to sing Gerrard songs for a lot of the match.
Absolutely proper time to sing Gerrard songs.
And
it was quite amusing watching it towards the end of the game when he was like running in treacle because he was getting old and his legs... It was just...
He was really...
It was like a reverse road runner.
It's really peculiar, actually, because I thought actually the first leg, which I thought again was equally brilliant. I mean, another breathtaking match.
2 great legs.
Really superb games. I actually thought that Gerrard was their best player in the first leg. I thought that when he came off, we got into the game up there. I thought he played really, really well. I thought he looked a man who was 502 last Tuesday. But I'm being fair. I actually thought he was their best player the week before. And they looked a poorer side when they took him off.
What did you think of Brendan Rodgers coming out afterwards and saying, well, you know, the best team failed to win
He's
tonight?
an idiot.
I think
I'm so cross about it that I'm going to sing the Brendan Rodgers song and get taken off air permanently.
Yeah, I don't think you can sing that.
I just think Rodgers, to a certain extent, is like Wenger, because Wenger's still saying that Arsenal got a chance to win the league. Sometimes you've got to come out and say, we were beaten.
Do you remember during the Gulf War, Comical Ali?
Yeah.
He said, our tanks are on the outskirts of Washington. We're about to take the White House.
Yeah, brilliant. I just think sometimes as a top manager, you have to admit that your team got beaten. Jose's done it.
Jose's done it.
He'll come out and say it.
Yeah, but this is the thing. The Brendan Rodgers is actually the perfect manager for Liverpool because he's completely deluded.
It's a muppet.
He's deluded. He talks absolute errant nonsense, I think is the way to describe that. And he if you were being kind, Dan, you would say that he's being quite smart and he's just talking to his audience, and his audience is deluded Scousers.
Well,
if you're being kind.
Every now and again, all he has to do is drop in how wonderful it is at Anfield. Then he's got another year in his contract.
Yeah. Great history at that club.
Terrific history.
Terrific history.
Five.
Yeah, they're great lads.
Club of this size.
I haven't thought about doing a Brendan Rodgers impersonation, but I'll work on it for my return in March.
You can offend a whole new tranche of people watching.
Okay, because he's got some wonderful kind of Northern Irish affectations,
and the way he does is like on the sidelines. I don't know what he does. So he does one with his hands on the sidelines.
You know what, though? I mean, the thing about Brendan Rodgers is that this is a man who is clearly, he clearly likes the smell of his own fart. I think I'll leave it at that.
I saw there's a documentary.
Got to leave it there.
Documentary his first season.
That's right. With a big full-size portrait.
Yeah, in his living room. It was like massive. Must have been about 20 by 20 picture of him looking very studious.
What was quite amusing at the end is obviously had a lot of money spent on his teeth. He's had veneers upon veneers.
Veneer. Very, very appropriate.
Veneers.
Well, quite, yeah.
Veneers.
Veneer with a bit of gloss.
Maybe, yeah. And at the end, he was standing at the side of the pitch with his lips pursed, and he looked for all the world like
giving it the blue eyes.
Well, his teeth don't fit in his mouth. So
you missed my blue eyes shot. Get on my camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Blue eyes. Better than yellow snow.
He looked like a trout.
He looked like a trout or a perch.
You look like a trout.
You look like a trout. Brendan Rodgers. You look like a trout. Anyway, no more talking of Brendan Rodgers on this show. What we really need to talk about is get into the Costa debate from the match because, who knows? I mean, were they stamps, Dan?
They weren't stamps at all. He did tread.
Man, I didn't expect that.
No, he trod on them. He certainly did tread on them. There's no doubt about that. But if you look it up in a dictionary, that's not a stamp. There's no downward force.
A stamp is something that you put on a letter and then you post.
Yeah.
In
the old days, you used to.
Old money.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to wait till I get home to see it. And you look at Costa, his eyes are forward, not down. His movement is fluid. He doesn't sort of go like that to make a stamp. It's all a fluid movement because he's trying to hurdle the guy. And it happens all the time. He comes down. It wasn't a deliberate stamp, nor was the one on Skirtle.
Okay. Wow, you're both adamant. Definitely not a stamp.
Having said all that, he was always going to get the ban for it.
Yeah, I think it's the FA.
And as soon as the FA looked at it, it was going to be a ban.
We're going to really go into that in the next part. But, I mean, I'm inclined to... I mean, I know we're all very blue-spectacled round this table, but, I've seen stamps... proper nasty. Aguero against Luis, for example.
Dog Rigby on anyone.
Dog Rigby on anybody. Yeah. Me for Ropley Tigers. I know what a proper stamp is all about.
Yeah.
And I know he's, he could be a bit snide. I know that. But even so,
He's been naughty. He hasn't been malicious. It's not a stamp.
Clumsy.
Yeah.
He's been a bit more than clumsy.
Okay,
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, you recognise that there might have been a bit of malice in it.
Could he have avoided it? Only he knows. But I just think he was looking forward, trying to aim for the ball, foot comes down, the leg's in the way.
So, I mean, if that's the case then, I mean, is he a liability or is he being victimised, Dan?
Oh, he's certainly not a liability, is he?
No,
He's
anything but.
One of the best three strikers in the world, isn't he? He's remarkable.
Well, because we're going to lose him. We lost him for 5 bookings earlier on in the season. We've now lost him for 3 because of irrespective of whether we think it was a stamp or not, he's got a ban.
It's a massive part of his game, this is, and it was interesting afterwards talking to Brana Ivanovic, and that it was quite clearly a line I thought might have been fed to him, maybe.
Really? Heaven forbid.
Where he said, Diego likes to be the centre of attention, and all of this makes him stronger, basically, is his line. And actually, I do believe that.
I mean, with Costa, you take on the edge. you lose the edge, you lose a lot.
I totally agree, mate. I wrote an article. Sorry to cut over you, but I wrote an article about this beginning of the season, probably after his 5th booking. And the bottom line is you have to accept it. If you want the player that he is, then that's what comes with it. If you want the Chelsea FanCast to be the show that is, you have to accept my appalling toilet humour. It's the same kind of thing.
In a 50-game season, 55-game season, you'll get Costa for 30 to 35 games. You'll lose some for suspension. But you take that all day, every day for the player.
If that's the case, then is he being victimised?
Is it us? Is it him, or is it the club?
Well, we'll get into the club in the next part. But is he being victimised?
Yes, I think his reputation.
You think he is?
I think his reputation precedes him. Because if you look at, I think he came out in an interview over the weekend saying he has done some stuff in the past. He's no angel when he admits that. And had it been Sterling, should we say?
That's what we're going to
I'd be interested to see what the reaction would have been.
Yeah.
Because Sterling got away with it, although he didn't punch something particularly hard. He pushed something in the face, got away with it.
A punch from Sterling's hardly going to register, is it? Punch from Costa, he'd have been in the back of the stand, wouldn't he?
Sterling can sort
Is he being victimised, Dan?
I think he's, as Dan's just said, I think he's a bit of a victim of his reputation, which is something Mourinho said.
Always the victim. It's never his fault.
It's always his fault.
It's something Mourinho said at the beginning of the season, or early in the season. He went through all the yellow cards that he's had, and he said, "This one is, and he said, basically, we've.
He's being targeted in my book.
Oh, I think there's a certain amount of that going on, certainly. But then, of course, plays. That's his game.
You look at the Everton game when he got booked. I think if you kind of get into Coleman's face after scoring, probably more worthy of booking than what actually got booked for.
He started before that. He started at Burnley.
I mean, what leads me to that that conclusion is that if you look at all the other decisions in that game, the double standards and the inconsistency from Michael Oliver. I mean, that referee in my book had an appalling game. I mean, he was rubbish. Okay, just read down the list. We should have had a penalty for Costa.
Yeah.
Dead nailed on. Everybody, even Niall Quinn, thought it was a penalty, so it must have been. Henderson and Lucas should both have had red cards.
I thought Lucas could have had 5 yellows.
Well, there you go. Markovic elbowed Luis, floored him, and didn't even off the ball, didn't even get noticed. And that kind of, I mean, in view of everything else that's going on, I mean, I know we'll talk a lot about the media in the next part, but it makes me wonder: are people really that rubbish, or are we reaping what we sow?
I would like consistency across the board. So if Costa does get banned, then it happens to Giroud or happens to somebody else, they get banned.
Or Aguero.
I'd have no problem if the FA are consistent with their decisions. It just seems to be they've got this almost like, let's pluck some out of the sky.
But it just seems to be one rule for us and another rule for everybody else, Dan.
It seems like that. I mean, there are a number of reasons why it seems like that. One of them is because we're obviously, Chelsea is in sharper focus to us. We don't pay too much attention.
That's very true, actually.
We don't pay too much attention to the other 19 clubs,
What other 19 clubs? There are it's Chelsea Reserve, Chelsea Ladies. That's it.
But we do to an extent, though, because look at the Vertonghen incident the next night when he grabbed somebody's throat. That wasn't replayed on Sky ad infinitum for over.
But it wasn't. I think to be fair to that, it was easy for us to cry foul with that. But in the scheme of things, I don't think that was as bad as.
Going back to Essier against Liverpool when he got banned.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Going back,
But the issue here, of course, is that if something like this happens in a game between, I don't know, Leicester and QPR, does anyone really care apart from Leicester and QPR fans? It's not going to be on constant rotation on Sky because it's just not. It's not the sort of box office that Chelsea is.
I guess from that point of view, we are in that niche of top clubs where everything we do is under the microscope.
Yep.
Where whatever we do, we're going to get attention.
We're in the shop window, aren't we?
Yep.
Bigger profile. So what do you reckon, Andy? I mean, are we getting the wrong end of it?
I mean, the thing is, the referee's got to see that in real time. Had he seen that in real time, would he give him a red card for it, which is what he's been charged with?
Yeah.
I don't think he would have.
No, he said that's why he's got charged, because he said if he's seen it in real time, it would give him the red card.
But I think, sorry to cut in, Andy, but I think that's easy for him to say in hindsight.
Exactly that.
Because he's a human being. He must know that he had a shocker all night.
Oh, yeah.
So if he'd have said, well, you know what, I wouldn't have given that a red card, he would have felt more pressure because he knew he'd have a stinker. So he had to say what he thinks the FA wanted to hear. Yeah. And the FA wanted to hear that was a stamp, that was a red card offence.
Yep.
QED, he says, well, I didn't see it, but I would have given it a red card.
At 9 o'clock the next morning, I said, if you do not think he would get banned for the next 3 games, you must be mad. They get 3 games. And that was on Wednesday morning. Yeah.
It's almost like the appeal process is almost like it's a moot point because you appeal, the FA don't care. I mean, it's almost like it's just
had
there.
Had there been Sterling on John Terry, I don't think it would have been looked at. Had there been John Terry
there were plenty of
Sterling.
incidences. That Lucas foul on Oscar, I thought was very nasty. And Skirtle's, you know, I mean, Skirtle is the centre-back equivalent of Costa, in my book. Nasty piece of work.
I mean, from minute one, they set out to try and get Costa booked and get him to react from minute one. And in the end, when he did get it, it was their captain further up the field that managed to do it. Yeah, and they tried that for 90 minutes.
But what I did like right at the end of the game, Costa and Skirtle, proper handshake and proper respect.
Well, that's what
football's all about.
You know, I love them.
90 minutes on the pitch, you do what you want. After the game, it's like, you have respect.
Old school
That's what
football.
I like.
I'm all, you know, I am, you know, Stamford Chidge against modern football. You know, I love all of that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up with. Anyway, we should wrap this up really by talking about Brana. There's a very good reason for this because I've just written a piece for CFC UK because it occurred to me how much we underestimate Brana Ivanovic and how much under the radar he goes. And of course, he's been at the club since 2006. He's been there 9 years now.
Incredible.
Wow.
And the thing about him was, you know, cometh the man, cometh the hour. What a great goal. I mean, he leapt, it seemed, even when we were there, Dan, I mean, it looked like he'd leapt 10 foot higher than everybody else.
Yeah. He does love scoring against Liverpool, doesn't he?
Watch that goal. Yeah, but here's the thing. This is the tenet of my article, really, is that, you know, I worked out he's now scored, if you include the 2 that he scored up at Anfield that, you know, set him on his way, he's scored another 4 massively, massively crucial goals for Chelsea, which are...
Napoli.
Yes.
Yeah. Europa League final.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Dead air.
No, I'm patient. You were involved with one of them, Andy, and there's a picture to prove it.
Oh, well, yes, of course, Man City away.
Man City away.
Oh, yeah.
And now this one that's got us to a final. And for a right back or a defender, I think that's just... Do you know, and the other thing I mentioned in the article, do you know who he reminds me a bit of?
Oh.
There's a bit of Chopper Harris in Brana because they both have played centre-back and right-back for Chelsea. You know, I mean, obviously Brana scores more goals than Chopper, but there's something that reminds me of... the fact. I think it's the fact that you know that Brana would run through a brick wall for Chelsea.
I call him Tank.
And
on that very, very point, he was the other guy I spoke to after the game.
Oh, that's right.
And of course, after the Liverpool game, Mourinho said they should take his boot down the academy because it's full of blood, where he's been injured and he's played on through that. He played the whole of that game against Man City with a cut foot that they couldn't sew up because it was too swollen up. So they didn't even treat the wound. He basically played 90 minutes of football with a hole in his foot. Yeah,
he's hard.
Man's hard.
And when I spoke to him afterwards, he said it hurt. Oh my word!
I mean, he's hard as nails. I mean, you look at him; he's just proper hard, old-fashioned.
But they love him. I mean, you know, because you know, strangely for me, I did a bit of research before the old CFC UK blog, and I picked out the quote that Frank Lampard said about him after the Europa Cup final, and he said that, you know, exactly the same point really, that he goes under the radar a bit, but not with us.
He's a really, really popular guy in that dressing room.
We love him. He's what a player that guy is.
He seems to be everyone's mate in that dressing room.
Yeah, he's, you know. And in fact, the other final point on it was that, you know, and I came up with this line, you know, particularly after the blooded boot incident, you know, Captain Bleeder legend. And I mean, he could have... I forgot that he's 30. I mean, if he was like maybe 4 years younger, you could see... he would be my choice for the next Chelsea captain, not Fabregas, as I think Mourinho naughtily mooted a few months ago. That's who I would pick as my next Chelsea captain. It won't happen. He's too old. Yeah. But, you know, given that he was a few years younger, I would have him in the team as the captain as a shot. Might not be very vocal, but he leads from the front on the pitch.
Yeah, he's bags and bags of character, and he just it's a never say die thing, which I think we'd like to see in a Chelsea captain.
We do, and I love him for it. So thank you, Brana. I mean, he's propelled us to another final meeting with the horrible Spurs on March the 1st, and I hope, of course, that will be a great chance for revenge for. I mean, I know you lot out there are thinking 2008. I'm thinking 1967. I haven't forgotten that yet. So there we go. And I think we should all say amen to that.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah. Now, after this little short break, we're going to be coming back and we're going to be talking... I don't know. What are we going to be talking about? The FA again and Jose's blackout. We've got a chap who actually really does work for the media who's going to tell us what he thinks. We'll see you in a sec.